Hello, everybody. My name is Shantera Chatman, and I am the president of Power Consulting. And you are now watching the Ally in Action interview series. This is a series where we get to talk to different people in this diversity, equity, inclusion, and allyships community, talk about different perspectives and what it takes to be a strong ally. And so I am completely honored, crazy excited to have my first guest today, because you will soon find out why she's the first guest and how all of these things got started with Power Consulting, the Transformative Ally Framework, and everything. And this lady has been behind the scenes helping me for so long. I'm so happy that she's able to be on camera with me today. So I am introducing to you Kandice Cole. How are you?
Hello. Hey, Shantera. Glad to be here. Excited to talk today.
I know, right? So how about you just kind of give a quick introduction to yourself for everyone who's watching so they'll know who you are.
Yeah. So I am Kandice Cole. I am the founder of K Cole Coaching and Consulting. And I work with nonprofits, small businesses, and boutique entrepreneurs who are really looking to make impact with their ideas. So I help them really bring their ideas to life in really creative ways, and whether that's through curriculum, programming, initiatives. So that's really the basis of what my business does and what I do. And I'm, located out here in the Houston, Texas area as well. So yeah, just really glad to be here to chat with Shantera, because we've been doing a lot of work these past few months.
Yes. And so I'm going to take it back a little bit further than the past few months, because you and I have a pretty interesting connection. For those of you who do not know, I am also the founder and executive director of the Chapman Women's Foundation. And I've had this foundation for about 13 years. And Kandice reached out to me. So how about you tell them how you found me? Because that was kind of crazy, but it's a cool story.
Yeah, so I moved out to Texas a few years ago, and through an online business community, I met a woman who lived in the Houston area. And so when I first got here, I asked her if she could introduce me to just anybody who she thought would be a good person for me to be connected to, because I really wanted to have community here. And the first person on her list was Shantera. And so she made a warm introduction via email, very random introduction, and Shantera answered the email, and that's how we kind of got things going. I ended up moving back to Chicago and stayed in contact with Shantera. Like, we would talk like just every few months. Like, it would be like a check-in via email. We might get on the phone, and it was really about her foundation, like the work that she was doing with the foundation, and seeing if I could maybe help out or assist in any kind of way. And that went on for like 3-4 years of just these random check-ins, just like, how are things going? How's the foundation going? What's happening? What events are coming up? And that's really how it started. Was literally me asking for a connection. And because Shantera is known by so many people, she rose to the top of this list. And that's literally how it started. It wasn't like a networking event or, we were like in this Facebook group. It was literally just this email handoff that happened. And then, what do they say? The rest is history.
I know. And, when I think about that, it was like over the course of years that you and I just were corresponding. Yeah. And I remember I was working on a curriculum of some sort for the foundation. And you were going to help me create this curriculum for work, going in and doing some work in shelters, in women's shelters. So that was really just kind of how we kept connecting. And after a while, things on that front was a little slow. So we would just kind of chat, and we just really just stayed connected. And for anybody watching, if you send me an email, I'm going to respond.
She will. She will.
This is a testament to that. I will respond to the message. I'm always, trying to talk to somebody.
Right, right.
Like my brother said, she always trying to be somebody's mama, so she gonna call
Yeah, she
somebody.
gonna stay, and she stayed in touch. Like it was just it wasn't all the time or every month. I mean, it was every few months, but it was consistent contact that we stayed in, even when we weren't even in the same city anymore. So that was important too. It's just that we just, had touch points
Yeah.
along the way.
I know, but when it came time, because eventually during this course, over the course of time, I stepped away from corporate America and started my own firm, consulting firm, Power Consulting. And last year, I wrote a book, The Transformative Ally Framework. And I remember thinking that I wanted to create some type of lecture series for universities.
Mm-hmm.
And you were the first person, actually the only person that popped in my mind, this person that I'd never met before,
Right.
except for on the phone. And I was like, I need to reach out and see, because I think she writes curriculums and stuff. Because I have an idea and I have content, but I had no idea how to make that something unique.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to just go into a place and just start talking about stuff.
Right.
And so I was hoping that that was what you did. So I reached out and was like, hey, so do you do this? And I think I want to be a client.
Right.
And I think that's important. I had to say I wanted to be a client because I didn't want you to think that I was trying to get you to do something for me for free. You had a business.
Right.
And I wanted to support your business, and I trusted you already because we've been talking for years.
Right.
And it was just like, hey, let me reach out and let's see how this could work.
Yep. And I think what was interesting is that around that time when you approached me about doing a curriculum, I was transitioning into starting my business. So up until that point, I had been a freelance consultant and independent contractor, but hadn't started my business. And so I was transitioning into that and transitioning into expanding my curriculum development beyond K-12 education, because my background is in teaching. So I started off teaching and translated those teaching skills into the consulting I do around diversity and inclusion, curriculum development, program management, things like that. So when Shantera asked me, I was really at a turning point in my business where it's like, okay, I think I'm ready to use these kind of strategies and methods and this kind of creative way that I think about curriculum with clients outside of education and nonprofits. So she came to me really at a perfect time, but also for me as a business owner, I had to take a leap and say, okay, this is what I've been preparing for. And now here's my ideal client, a boutique entrepreneur who wants to develop a program, who wants to develop curriculum, who's also willing and open to do it differently. Because Shantera will talk about this, I'm sure, later. Like it wasn't a linear process. She had to trust me on my process, but really own it. So between what she was working on and what I was working on, it was just kind of like a perfect meeting of the minds and where we were both in our business journeys and our processes. So it was definitely for me too, definitely like a really important part and phase of my business, kind of really a stepping stone into what I really wanted to do with helping people to really develop curriculum that, like you said, was interesting, that was relevant, innovative, not the same old thing.
Yeah. And, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I always try to, find women-owned businesses and minority women, Black-owned businesses that I can support in any way, because I'm there too, right? So us helping each other is always something that we want to continuously do. But you also mentioned the process, and I wasn't really going to go there, but since you brought it up, I am this type A personality that I have these steps, and I have my list, and I have my thoughts and my content. And I will say this, I knew to a certain extent that I was going to have to relinquish what I knew and my, my thoughts on what I felt like it needed to be to you, because you're a creative person. Right. I just didn't know how deep that goes. And the process that you have is so unique, to be able to just sit and say, talk to me, share, let's just get it all out there. And then we'll start to, kind of navigate. I will say that I was impressed that you remembered things I said from the very beginning Like we were months into the process and you remembered saying, hey, you remember you said you wanted signature activities. So I've been working on this list of signature activities that you can do and all of these things. It's an amazing process. And for people who are willing to release the reins and allow you to take control of it, it worked. And my content wasn't changed. That was the thing. The actual, underlying what I wanted to get across about this being an ally and advocacy and support and coexistence, all of those things were highlighted every step of the way. So I was just like, she knows what she's doing. She is for real. Because you've seen people that just, be very creative and they're like, oh, and the stars and the moon, and we're going to
never land.
And nothing happens. It never ends, but nothing happens. Yep. So, I mean, is this just how you naturally are, or did you have to create that process? Not to go too deep into the process.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think part of it is how I naturally am. I think that especially from my teaching background, at a certain point, things have to be structured enough so that you can teach them to whether a young child, adult, whomever. And so though you have all this creativity and all this openness, you have to come back to these parameters to make it relevant and relatable to other people. So my teaching background definitely helped me to always kind of navigate both of those worlds. I would say the biggest thing though about the work that we did together goes back to what we talked about earlier, which was relationship. Like me and Shantera are two very different people, but over the course of 3-4 years, we were able to see that. So though Shantera had to trust my process, I also understood who Shantera was. And so we were able to really play off of each other's energy so that I didn't feel like I was pushing her in a way that for her didn't feel right, and vice versa, where she was actually able to trust that the process and how we were doing things was going to get back to her ultimate goal. So I think the relationship piece probably also too was a really strong foundation in you allowing me giving me free reign, knowing that I was going to bring it back. Like like you said, we're going to land on something, because I respect that about her. And I respect that about what you did with the foundation. And I knew, having relationship allows you to know things about people so that then you can do really, really, I think, impactful things, even though people are coming about it with kind of two different methods and ways of working.
Right. Yeah. And, even, just kind of getting us into this conversation about allyship, it's about building authentic relationships.
Absolutely.
And if you don't have that, it's going to be very difficult for you to claim to be an ally or even claim to be an advocate for that point. Yep. So, just know, that it's about a relationship. But I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think is the difference or the importance? Because you may think that it's just one is more important than the other versus a difference between allyship and diversity. Because we hear people talking about, things, you have to be diverse. You have to be this, this organization that's, diverse and they have all this strong diversity, blah, 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 blah. Right. And then now we're hearing ally. We're hearing allyship. It's almost becoming that buzzword, which is unfortunate because I don't think people really understand what it is. So what do you think is the key difference or the importance of allyship?
Yeah. I mean, for me, diversity is I like to say it's an easy statistic. Like, it's just an easy number for us to know where on the scale of difference, are we inviting different populations into our workplaces, the organizations. Even diversity, like you said, has become very pigeonholed because people often forget about other things like, ability and age and how we learn. For me, allyship is the real story behind the statistic, right? So diversity tells you one thing. Allyship really tells you the full story about how someone feels supported or included in the organization. And so for me, that's kind of the difference between the title of a book versus the contents of the book. Like, you could see the title, you kind of know what it's going to be about, but the real nitty gritty is when you open up the pages and get to reading. So for me, allyship is the meat of the story. That's to me the most important part of why we do diversity in the first place. Because if people don't feel supported, as Shantera does in her, really helps people understand in her work, If people aren't feeling included, if people aren't feeling really supported, and being supported and being included are two different things, which Shantera talks a lot about in the Transformative Ally Framework. If they don't feel those two things, then the diversity efforts really don't matter. Because the point of diversity should lead to creating supportive and inclusive spaces for the diverse populations you're bringing in. So for me, allyship is the real story behind why diversity matters and what people need in order to thrive in spaces that often that are not very diverse. And I think, like you say, in all of the kind of buzzword, trendy nature of that, we lost sight of that, and people got fixated on just the easy stat that you can just say, I have X number of people, I have this percentage of. It's like, well, I want to know the real story of how those people feel. I want to hear quotes about how they feel about being there. You know what I mean? Like, and that's where the allyship comes in, which now we're seeing is that a lot of people hit all those diversity diversity milestones, but then you start talking to people who are in the organizations and it's something different. I feel like 2020, we're seeing that a lot.
Be on the lookout for part 2 of this great conversation.